Welcome to Cheery Conversations, where we all overcome our uncertainties on juicy topics, one conversation at a time. Each week, we're joined by author, speaker, and pastor Sonny Hennessy, along with a special guest. And this week, our guest is Rachel Thibadeau. Super fun to say, really hard to spell. Rachel's been married to her husband Tom for 3 years, and she wears a lot of hats during the week. She's a barista trainer, she's a shift supervisor, and she's also the retail manager and admin assistant for iHeartWorld, which is an anti-human trafficking organization. And so today we're going to be talking with Sonny and Rachel about being young, about being married, and how to keep the new in Newlywed. So me and Sonny have been married, not newly.
Not newly at all. We are not newlyweds. I don't even know that word anymore. How long have you been married? 24 years.
I've been married almost 19 years. Which means we got married very young.
Yes,
very young.
12.
Yes. So this conversation is so great because we believe that it's really important to be talking to people in a season ahead of you. Mm-hmm. So that's something Sonny and I have to look to, but that's kind of what this conversation is going to be about today. But you are in a season ahead of people too, because there's some people who've just been married for a year, maybe they're about to get married. So you have really great advice for people as well. So before you start talking to Sonny about all your questions, what can you tell our listeners and viewers about something you do in your marriage, something you and Tom do that really brings the best out in your marriage?
I would say we definitely we love us time. We definitely like finding things that fill each other's cup, whether it's together or even fulfilling each other's love languages too, which for a long time I didn't do that because I kept acting out my own instead of figuring out what his is. So just being a lot more intentional with that too.
Which first step is figuring out, taking the test to find out the love language.
Yeah, absolutely.
So smart,
yeah.
Which you can do online, and you guys did.
Yes.
So what's his and what's yours?
Mine is acts of service and quality time.
Okay.
And his is words of affirmation, which I would have never thought that he's one of those people, but I've found that it's very important to him to kind of speak that life over him and where I'm one where I'm more along the lines of I want to be with you, or I really love it when I come home after work on Saturday and all the dishes are done, or the house is clean, and I'm just yes, I don't have to do that, but he definitely does that for me, but it's really hard for me to always have the right words to say, which I thought for a long time that was the thing, but it's just find words and just speak it over him.
It's so good that because a lot of people think they're fighting a marriage battle and a relationship issue, and really they're just speaking the wrong language.
Yeah.
And still to this day, I have to push myself to speak Sean's love language to him because frankly, I don't get it. You said those people. I didn't know he was one of those people. I'm well, you don't understand it. He's one of those. But to know that I will not understand you in that area, so I have to push myself to fulfill that. That's a huge self-awareness thing in a relationship. I love that.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. One thing that I'm curious about is how do you, as your roles change throughout the course of your marriage, how do you push yourself to grow, but then how do you take that and complement it with growing together?
Yeah, that is a thing. Yeah, that's an answer. Okay, I think people do really change, and sometimes the husband is growing at a faster pace in career, but the wife is growing at a faster pace personally, or vice versa. And I think that if we're just happy and celebrating the growing, period, just you're growing, I'm growing, we don't always have to be on the same page. That's kind of something that we talk about whenever we're having conflict with someone. I need to get on the same page. I'm not on the same page. And what if we just had grace in a marriage to not always be on the same page? Because the beautiful thing about how marriage works and how it was originally created by God is that when I'm not having a good day, Sean's having a great one, and over we see this happen. And then the next day we flip. And I'm so grateful that God made it where on my bad days he's doing good for some reason, and then vice versa, because I need, when I'm growing personally, to have him maybe focused on growing professionally. And because then he's pushing that part of our life forward, and I'm pushing our relationship and the personal side forward. But if I can celebrate that and he can celebrate that about me, what we're doing is we're killing 2, 3, or 4 birds with one stone, because two become one. So let's grow separate and different and be excited about it, rather than this is a problem, we're not on the same page. I think it's a perspective change even.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah. One thing too that I'm curious is how do you two, like you and Sean, how do you like keep your marriage like fresh, or like on like dates and stuff, and like just keeping that like the new in like newlywed, like keeping your like
the spark.
Intimacy, the spark.
Well, there's guys retreat this weekend. I'm looking forward to that. Is that bad? No, I think when we have some time apart, even if it's overnight or 2 days, I think it's good when he works longer on a certain couple of days, or I'm away all day long and we don't see each other, because often when you work together or you do see each other by 5 o'clock every night, it's just like, I just see you again. So routine. It's a routine. And then a date seems kind of out of nowhere. Like, why would we do something different than 5 o'clock? I'll see you at home. We'll make dinner. And then that gets stale. I actually love when, like during Packers season, our marriage was just all kinds of sparks, because he was always gone with the team. And then when he was home, we were making up for lost time and chatting and filling each other in. And we were excited to see each other. So I think if you're feeling like the blah, maybe go, okay, I'm going to go away for the weekend. Or if you can't do that, then just find some things to do even separate in the house for a couple days. And so you're not just doing the same routine. I think routine robs a lot when it comes to marriage. And then there's times where you go, we need to get in a routine. We're not seeing each other enough. And then you sit down and you find a good routine. But I think sometimes it's not even a marriage problem. It's just a stale problem.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. What do you do, like when you and Sean teamed up to start the exchange, or like to be business partners, like what did that feel like, and how did like working with each other that way feel like? Because Tom and I kind of aspire to do something like that too. So how did that dynamic work?
Well, with everything we do, he runs in his lane and I run in mine. So a lot of people think when you do a joint effort and you own a business together or you work together, we do the church together. Well, I'm the lead pastor, which means leadership. It means leading the staff and leading things at the church. He's the senior pastor. We're not both the lead pastor. We're not both the senior pastor, because he needs to run in his lane and do what he's gifted in, and I need to run in mine. If I tried to become Sean or he tried to become Sonny, we're gonna have friction. And we have a really great relationship, and we've done this our whole life. With the exchange, he didn't try to be brilliant on being a barista. He didn't try to start learning even how to froth milk. He just lets me do it. And he'll have a statement like, the design is not as good today in my milk. But he doesn't try to insert himself into that role. And then the same thing goes for, he's really great when he delivers food. He's just chatting it up, and he might go and stand and talk to somebody at a table for 10 minutes. I know for me, I'm like, I've got to get to a bunch of different tasks in 10 minutes. But thank God Sean's doing what Sean does best. He can just chat away with somebody. So I think it's finding what is going to be your lane and what's going to be mine. If you're starting a business, don't have both of you over the finances and budget, and both of you over the design and the systems of how this is going to run. Like, split that. Because then what happens is you're also waiting for the other to give their approval on a part of the project. And then it becomes, well, who gives who approval? But I can give approval in my lane and you give approval in your lane. I think that would help when we do that. And that comes back to knowing your love language, knowing your personality, knowing your gifts.
Yeah, that's so cool.
You had said something a little earlier about like being on the same page, being okay with not being on the same page, and then we just talked about like running in your lanes. Like, what are your strengths? How do you navigate when your spouse is maybe running a lane or on a page that you don't understand? Maybe you really feel like it's not what you would do, or the choice you would make, or the direction you would go, but they're very passionate about it. How do you navigate that? manage it, support it, or talk about it.
I think some people have taken marriage and the concept of two become one, and they've determined, okay, then we're always going to be one. We're going to think alike. We're going to do the same thing. Like I said, we're going to get on the same page. We're going to run in the same lane. And then they wonder why they have conflict. If we were roommates, say in college, and we were just going to do everything together, arm in arm, and I wanted you to think like me and I wanted you to act like me, we would irritate the heck out of each other. So we get in a marriage and we're roommates who happen to love each other, who hopefully like each other. And so let's celebrate that. I don't understand that. Frankly, I'm glad that Sean loved doing the Packer chaplain thing, which is like being with a bunch of guys that originally he didn't know that well, coming into their world. I was like, oh my gosh, that would be so stressful. He loved it. So why would, in another instance, I think he's going to think just like me and do the same thing. And I might see something in a situation that he chose to do 3 months down the road and realize, wow, I'm going to learn from him because he's being him. Sean's great at saying to me, just be you. He says it to all of our staff. He says it to anybody, our church, anybody he can talk to. He says, just be you. But then in marriage, we try to tell people, just be like me and who I want you to be. But if both partners say, you be you and you be you, that's when we complement each other and we're so in love with each other. And I want Sean to be more of who he is. If he's going to be like Sonny, that's just going to get, complicated anyway.
Yeah. Oh, that was so good. I love that. There's something else. Celebrate the differences, celebrate the changes, celebrate the growths. How is one way either one of you do that in your marriage? How do you celebrate like the big milestones or the big changes, whether it's a job or a hobby or whatever that is? How do you celebrate that in your marriage?
I would say, well, one thing for us, because Tom works in sales, when he is successful in like acquiring a new client, one thing that I've done is I'll get him a card.
Nice.
And like just be intentional about like verbiage and stuff. And also it's really weird, but like he like loves balloons. So like I'll get him a balloon.
Awesome.
I'll get him a balloon with like some candy, but like he'll hang it by his nightstand. And like it's like so cute, but it's like childish, but like I love it.
Yeah.
But we're just like, it's still floating, or like we just like watched it kind of sink its way down, but it was like, yeah. So that's one thing that I've done when he has success in his job. That's one thing that I've done to celebrate him, because it can be stressful in the day-to-day grind of doing sales, and it can be stressful. So just to kind of boost that a little.
Well, and it can be very tempting to go, he gets it.
Yeah.
I celebrate him. I don't need to spend $5.99 on a card, right? Like they're not cheap now. So I don't need to spend that much, and he gets it. Like we've done the balloon thing, and you could very quickly just determine it's not necessary. He knows I love him. But I think that it's important that you do what you're doing, and you do it 5 years from now. I think that's really awesome. For me, how do I celebrate Sean? Sean can text me like this really long, meaningful thing, and it's usually coming out of his prayer time. And I noticed that because he does that for me, that might be something that we have to read back and forth, right? Like that might be something he does for me because he really would love that. So for me, and I don't do this great, I probably should do more of like the long, meaningful text. I can say it to him, to his face, but I think that having it in writing means something to him. And the reason, that goes back to the 5 love languages again, there's people that they get gifts from their spouse all the time. And they're like, I don't care about the gifts, like me. I don't need a bunch of gifts. I probably do like it, but I think I don't. But he just gives gifts to me all the time. But Sean is a gift receiver. He wants gifts as his love language. So a lot of times what they're giving you is what they want. And so I probably should do more of a long text, because again, we see each other all the time. Of course we say I love you. Of course we're always there for each other. But what about that real mushy text? What about you? What do you guys do?
So BJ's quality time, I do know that. So, and we both like food a lot. So normally it's either special like dinner at home, like very specific, like this is for, dad, something really awesome happened at work or whatever, or we'll go out to dinner. And that is just good quality time, but also something I know we we both enjoy that he does too.
That's awesome.
So that's really great. I love this. Hey, stick around with us. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to continue talking to Sonny and Rachel just about marriage and how to keep it fresh and new, whether you've been married a year or 10 years. So stick around. We'll be right back.
For so many of us, our religion is just something we do, well, religiously. Our faith isn't something we live out. It's more like a place we just visit on Sundays. The truth is, our faith was never meant to be something we keep in a box or visit sometimes or avoid talking about at dinner parties. Our faith was meant to be something that gives us joy. This faith of ours isn't a weekly destination or a checkbox. It's a relationship that takes work. The pursuit of finding and growing more meaning and purpose in our faith, that's discipleship. And the Alpha Course is our discipleship track. Over the course of 10 weeks or so, we'll meet on Monday nights to dig deeper together. If you're ready to be more than a spectator and ready to grow your faith in 2020, let me encourage you to join us on Alpha. We begin Monday, February 3rd at 6 o'clock p.m. We'll have dinner, we'll watch a talk, and then we'll work it out together. You can register online or at the Welcome Center. I really hope to see you there.
Welcome back to Cheery Conversations. We're here with Sonny and Rachel, and we've been talking about marriage, the marriage relationship. And part of being married, whether it's a newlywed or you've been married for a while, some of the questions are about growing. You don't stay the same person you were on the day you were married. And we want that. We want growth individually and in our marriages. So how do you encourage and support Sean in growing?
Speaking life over him. And I know that sounds cliche. I feel like you hear people say that. But the minute you start saying to your husband the negative, he takes it on. And I'm sure the same is true the other way around. But if I'm like, really, you forgot that again? What that says to him is that I see him as someone who's forgetting. Really? Like, why? And so it's even in my reactions, I'm speaking life or death. And so I want to hold my tongue way more. So I've learned over the years, I see Sean grow more when I've held my tongue more. Because there's a lot of things that want to come out of my mouth. But when I say great things, I'm definitely not holding my tongue. I'm having to actually push myself to say that, like, babe, that sermon, like, wow. Because here's the thing, for Sean, I go, of course he knows he's a good preacher. Like, he's incredible. But I don't need to just assume he remembers that. I need to say that. And as I say it, he grows in his speaking ability. When I say you're such a good dad, when he comes back from praying with the kids, but then sitting on their bed talking for a long time, that's a great dad. And rather than just being like, did you pray for him? Which can be my go-to, did you pray for him? Meaning, do I need to go pray for him or not? When I instead know that he did or assumed he did, I'd be like, thanks for doing that. You're such a good dad. He then turns into a better dad. So it's really speaking life.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. For you and Sean, I guess from your perspective, what's the best advice that somebody gave you for your marriage?
Yeah. So he has one, but I'll share it because he says it's the best advice he ever got, and I would agree with him, but I have one too. So he says that the best advice he ever got was don't go to bed angry.
Yep.
That, unfortunately, in 24 years has not been what we've done perfectly. We've had those nights we go to bed angry. The next morning, we're worse off. One, we don't sleep well, we're restless. Physically, we don't sleep well. Second, we might have bad dreams, nightmares. I've had that when we go to bed angry. The next day, in the darkness, things grow, negative things grow. And so the next morning, it actually feels like an even bigger chasm than the stupid little tiff we had before we went to bed. So we know, even if it's like I feel a hand come over like this, because we are gonna fall asleep. If I just felt that, I'd probably just fall asleep. So it doesn't have to be, well, we need to talk it out before we go to sleep. Maybe it's just taking each other's hand and realizing, okay, this is nothing compared to the importance of our relationship. So I love that advice. My advice that I got was when we were almost separated. We were in a very bad spot. We'd been married about 10, 11 years. And someone said to me that they realized their spouse would come home late from work all the time. And they realized that the reason their spouse was coming home was not just because there were toddlers in the house, which at the time we had little kids, we had toddlers. So I thought, okay, Sean's coming home 5, 6, 6:30. And I'm like, why are you having to work late? This person shared with me that it wasn't just about the toddlers. What they noticed is that their spouse was coming home later, but they noticed that when they walked in the door, would get barraged with all of these complaints. Oh, this happened today, and you can deal with him. He's just crying all night, and it's your turn to change the diaper, and I'm sick of doing your laundry, and there's a load. You can finish. I'm done. Well, why would he want to come home at 4? Because he has from 4 to 8 to hear about it. What if he can come home at 6:30 or 7? He's only got an hour before the kids go to bed and you cool off to hear about it. And so this person said, and this was like right when we were kind of in a rough patch in our marriage, they said, does Sean feel like he's coming home to an oasis, or is he coming home to a war zone? And I remember this to this day. We do not have toddlers. There are times now I'm like, you need to talk to Aubrey, you need to talk to Isaiah. And I have to remember, no, don't hit him at the door with that. Because even if he's not consciously at work a little longer, he's subconsciously thinking, all right, am I geared up for my wife to just go off when I walk in the door? So best advice, make it where your spouse, your husband can come home to an oasis, not to a war zone.
Wow, I love that. I love that.
I had gotten some advice from my pastor's wife when me and BJ had just gotten married, and we didn't have kids yet, but she knew that was in our future. And so it's like this one piece of advice that always stuck with me too, and it was that my husband always wins in my heart. So when I have kids, and my kids, you can ask them this question.
They're teenagers now,
and they will know the answer. If my children ask me to choose between them or my husband, they know BJ is always going to win. I'm always he and I are a team, and we have to be that way in order to parent, in order to have a good marriage relationship, in order to be good friends. And so picking up those little nuggets of advice are so good.
And would you say your kids are similar to our kids' age?
Oh yeah.
This is the time where Sean and I are having to parents unite.
Yes.
Because your kids will get an answer from dad that's a no, go to mom and get a yes, and then mom and dad end up fighting. This happened on Sunday. I said no. Sean didn't know I said no. The kid asked. He said okay. They made it sound like I said yes. We get home, Sean and I are like, I said no. Well, she said this. He said this. And suddenly I looked at him, I said, we're not going to have a marriage issue because our kid did what kids do, what teenagers, I don't like that answer, go to the other person.
They're so smart.
They're so smart. So you're right, parents uniting is a huge, think of it like superhero. Parents Unite, whatever
Parents
that.
Unite.
Parents Unite.
We need t-shirts. I don't know.
Yes.
So good. Such a great question.
Yeah.
And so that makes me think of this, because this whole conversation is about advice and mentoring. And so we say this a lot in these conversations, like having someone in a season ahead of you in whatever situation or season you're in is so wise. And so when someone is married or going to get married, if they're looking for a couple to be like their marriage mentors, what should they be looking for in that marriage that they would want to emulate or be like?
Well, I think what they say about themselves, oh, we have such a good marriage, and I think a lot of words can come out of a lot of people's mouths. Like, we'll counsel you, and they seem like they think they're really good in their marriage. I think watch their body language, how they treat each other right now, because Sean and I have been married 24 years. I'm looking to my Aunt Judy and Uncle Fred. And my Aunt Judy is now Marco Poloing me, which is the greatest, that she gets on there and it's videoing herself. And Susan and I were on a group Marco Polo with her, and Susan mentioned to me, she said, did you see how Aunt Judy, when Uncle Fred came into the view, because he stepped in behind her in the kitchen where she was talking, he probably didn't know what she was doing, and he leaned in and she reached up, she said, Fred, do you have anything? And she touched his face.
Aww.
They're 72 or 73, and she touched his face like you would if you're 14 with your boyfriend. And you could tell it wasn't weird for him. She wasn't putting on, because he just leaned in like that's just normal, and she just caressed him. And I thought, yep, that's a marriage I need to look to, because there's no pretenses or they're trying to prove that they're good together. You can tell by their body language. And some people are less affectionate. They're not going to be like holding hands when they're talking to you all the time. But you'll see little glimpses of, gosh, or when one is talking and the other, you can see just... Sometimes I'll look at Sean after I'm done talking, not always, but yesterday was a really hard day for us, and he was just kind of on edge. But on a day where it's just a normal day, and I'm like, why is he looking at me so affectionately after I get done talking? He's like, and I'm like, what are you looking at? Like, do I have something on my face? He loved me by hearing me talk. Those are those little cues when you see that in couples. It means they're so madly in love with each other.
That's so great.
So I look to them.
That's so great. That's such good advice. And I love these questions because I know we have viewers and listeners who have the same questions, and sometimes they don't have someone to ask those questions of. So thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you got something out of this. If you know someone who needs to hear this, make sure to share it with them. We do have a Marriage Life Facebook group that if you're looking for advice or mentors or resources, that is such a great place to go. So be sure to check it out.
And if you'd like to connect with me directly, please go to sonnyhennessy.com. I'd love to know what you'd like to hear. Maybe if you have an idea for a guest to be on Cheery Conversations, or you just want to be in the know of what's coming up, go to sonnyhennessy.com and we'll connect.
Join us next week at the same time for another Cheery Conversation.